Have you ever thought about what it would be like to control a computer just by thinking? Well, that future might be a lot closer than you realize, because China has just dropped a massive national strategy to become the world leader in brain-computer interfaces.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at what this master plan actually is. Then, we'll quickly break down what a BCI, or brain-computer interface, even does. And then we'll get into their big ambition for 2030, see it in action, and talk about why they're doing this. And of course, the big ethical questions it raises.
So, first things first, China's BCI master plan. And let's be really clear about this. We're not talking about some research paper from a university. This is a full-blown industrial policy, coordinated from the very top of the government. This is a national mission.
And the language they use in the official guidelines is super telling. Notice that word, industry. This isn't just about discovery or science for its own sake. This is a top-down, state-driven mission to build an entire economic sector from the ground up.
And you can really see the scale of this when you look at who's involved. It's not just one ministry. We're talking about a massive, coordinated push from China's most powerful agencies in charge of tech, industry, and economic planning. They're all pointed at this one single goal.
So with all that government muscle behind it, what exactly is this technology they're pouring so much into? Let's take a second to define what a brain-computer interface, or BCI, actually is. At its core, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's about turning your thoughts directly into action. A BCI builds a direct communication link between your brain and some kind of external device. It reads your brain signals and translates them into commands, completely skipping the need for you to move a muscle or say a word.
Now, generally, BCIs come in two main flavors. First, you've got invasive BCIs. This is the serious stuff. It involves surgery to implant tiny electrodes right into the brain. It gives you incredibly precise control. On the other side, you have non-invasive BCIs. Think of these like a high-tech cap you wear, with sensors that read your brainwaves from the outside. It's way safer and easier, but the signal just isn't as sharp.
So how fast is China planning to make all this a reality? Well, this isn't some vague dream for the distant future. They have a very concrete, very ambitious roadmap designed to put them at the top of the world in this field.
Just look at these milestones. By 2027, that's just a few years away. The goal is to have major breakthroughs in the core hardware, the chips and electrodes, and to start seeing BCIs used in hospitals, factories, and even consumer gadgets. Then, just 3 years after that, by 2030, the plan is to have 2 or 3 globally dominant BCI companies and a whole mature industry humming along. Okay, but this isn't all just planning documents and future ambitions. Some truly mind-blowing applications are already happening. This is where science fiction really starts to feel like reality. And this is just wow. In a really important clinical trial, Chinese researchers showed what this tech can do. They worked with a patient who had lost all 4 of his limbs. After just a few weeks of training with an invasive BCI, he was able to play a car racing video game, controlling it entirely with his mind. So how on earth does that work? Well, first, these incredibly thin, flexible electrodes are implanted into the brain to pick up the neural signals. Then comes the magic. Really sophisticated algorithms act like a translator, decoding those signals to figure out what the person wants to do. Finally, that translated intention gets turned into a digital command that controls the game. It's a direct line from thought to action.
And here's the kicker. This successful trial makes China only the second country in the entire world, right after the US, to get this kind of complex, invasive BCI technology all the way to the clinical trial stage. That is a massive deal.
So this all begs a pretty big question, right? Why the huge push now? Why is China going all in on brain-computer interfaces? Well, it turns out the reasons are about a lot more than just cool tech. First up, as always, you gotta follow the money. Right now, in 2024, China's BCI market is already worth nearly $500 million. And while most of that is in non-invasive tech, the more advanced invasive slice of the pie is expected to grow to a quarter of the entire market by 2027. So there's huge economic potential here. But beyond the market size, this is driven by some really powerful strategic goals. Economically, this is about moving into high-tech, high-value industries. Geopolitically, developing their own BCI hardware is a direct answer to achieving tech self-reliance. And then there's the demographic angle. With an aging population, BCIs offer incredible new tools for healthcare and rehabilitation. It all wraps up into this larger ambition to lead in the next wave of critical technology. Of course,
Anytime you're talking about technology this powerful, technology that literally connects to the human brain, you're going to run into some really big, really complicated questions about how it should be used and who gets to make the rules.
I mean, seriously, with the power to read and interpret brain signals directly, what are the rules of the road? Well, recognizing just how important this is, China has actually been proactive about setting up a framework for how to innovate responsibly.
The government's new guidelines are built around some core ideas that are pretty familiar in medical ethics around the world. Things like making sure the tech is used for good, protecting a person's right to know what's going on and to back out at any time, putting safety first, and having really strict rules about privacy and fairness.
And this leads us to what is maybe the central debate in BCI ethics. It's the huge difference between using this technology for therapy, restoring a function someone lost, like helping them control a prosthetic arm, and using it for enhancement, taking a normal brain function and trying to make it better, like improving memory or focus. The Chinese guidelines are very clear that enhancement is going to be under much, much stricter control.
And that really leaves us with a fundamental question here. As we start to physically connect our brains to computers, where do we, as a society, draw that line between healing someone and enhancing them? It's not just a question for China, it's a question for every single one of us as we step in to this wild new frontier.